Rangers Football Club is one of the greatest names in the world game, with a glorious history of unparalleled success and unstinting tradition. On February the 14th, 2012, this mighty institution plunged into a crisis of horrendous proportions. Many feared this was the beginning of the end. Many hoped it would be so, but then they didn't count on the Rangers supporters, who refused to let their club die. This is the remarkable story of the passion and commitment of the Rangers family, unifying as one for the club they love.
Placed Rangers FC into the 3rd division.
Look back, it's madness, absolute madness.
In many ways it's great.
To do that for the club that we love.
45,000 people at home games, it's absolutely incredible.
I don't have anger for them now, I feel sorry for them.
This is The Rising. In May 2011, Rangers were basking in the glory of a 3rd successive SPL title, as Walter Smith completed his incredible 2nd spell as manager before handing over the mantle to Ali McCoist. After a protracted process with Sir David Murray, the club had a new owner in the shape of Craig White, and many were hopeful of a bright and successful future, with Rangers continuing to dominate the Scottish scene. However, little did anyone know that behind the scenes, all was not as it seemed.
I think if we're all being honest, the first thing to be said about Craig White is that we were all, I think, taken in by the spin that was put on it. So he succeeded in that respect, but that was all he succeeded in. I think it was fairly quickly it became clear, because there were always, you know what it's like in clubs, information's always leaked, and we were hearing things in the newspapers that just didn't quite stack up.
Quite early in Craig White's ill-fated reign, people were telling us that it wasn't all he was claiming to be.
Fans began to express fears and concerns about the stewardship of Craig White as rumours flew around Glasgow.
One thing you always look for with people who say they've got money is, where is the money coming from and how do you get it? And in terms of Craig White, I called Paul Murray very quickly, and Paul agreed. We actually met, had a coffee, and we agreed that we were perplexed by this, that it wasn't obvious to us how he had the resources to fund a club.
There's a complete lack of transparency on Craig White as an individual. We couldn't really, as a board, get to the bottom of who he was, what he'd done in the past, and where the money was coming from to fund the transaction.
I think in June 2011, the Record, where I was at the time, a story was written saying that he'd used money, he'd got money from tickets, therefore he was mortgaging in effect the future season tickets to buy the club.
I asked Craig White directly, and he directly said no, that wasn't the case. So that was a clear lie, a straightforward lie at that point.
The deal he was doing, which saw him basically buy the club with this contingent tax liability, I just could not understand why he was doing that, because in my business experience people just don't do this sort of things, and unfortunately, as was proven, that proved to be, if you like, the ultimate flaw in his deal, which eventually brought the club down.
Craig White did a very good job of pulling the wool over quite a lot of people's eyes, you know, both in the media, at the club itself, and the fans too. I mean, you know, there was a point where I was quite positive about Craig White. You know, I think after everything that had happened to the club, it seemed as if somebody was coming in, you know, with a bit of money and was going to actually hopefully turn things around.
When we first heard about Craig taking the club over, we heard stories about him being a billionaire and what have you. Although there was always hyperbole within that, you still thought or hoped that there was substantial money behind them.
Rangers' dismissal from the European competitions had effectively meant there was bound to be a cash flow crisis.
It was evident that Craig White's Rangers had slipped into a financial spiral, so he took unprecedented measures.
In October that year, we knew there was something going on as well, with that PAYE wasn't being handed over. So we asked about that. It was denied, of course, and I think once or twice there were sort of veiled threats: if you write this, then we'll sue, all of that sort of stuff.
If you and I or anyone else in Britain doesn't pay taxes, you get about 10 minutes of leeway, and then you get a letter saying pay us, otherwise there'll be trouble. And I've never understood why HMRC allowed Craig White to continue effectively for about 7 months not paying tax.
I'm absolutely astonished that the Inland Revenue allowed that to continue. Now, you have to factor in things like they've had run-ins before with Craig White, before he got to Ibrox, or so we believe, and perhaps they were allowing him enough rope. But I just think that in doing that, if that was their plan, they were damaging this club.
I think they couldn't be seen to be maybe forcing an institution like Rangers into an insolvent position. And I guess they were hoping that Craig White would actually do the right thing. But as I said before, he didn't do that. And I think the mistake they made, and I think where they are, if not culpable, they certainly have to be responsible. And to allow it to go so far was not the correct decision.
The whole thing sometimes still baffles me. When you think back and you look at all your documents, you look at all your notes, and you think, they could have stopped it then. The authorities, the football authorities, could have done something here. It could have been flagged up then. Craig White could have been stopped sooner. I personally said to a couple of people in the 6th floor at Hampden, where the SFA and SPL live, that PAYE wasn't being handed over, and they did nothing. And it was months and months and months after that before they actually took an interest. And I think that if the football authorities had maybe acted quicker, there wouldn't have been as much carnage caused by Craig White.
Okay, it's a bad day for every Rangers fan. It's a very bad day, there's no getting away from that. What we've done today is filed a notice of intention to appoint administrators. So the club is not the administration today. We've filed a notice of intention to appoint administrators, which will happen in the next 2 weeks if we're unable to get a sensible deal with HMRC. We've been working very, very hard behind the scenes right up until Friday to try to get a sensible arrangement in place with HMRC to avoid this. We still have 2 weeks to try and avoid any administration, but we've tried very hard so far and been rejected by HMRC at the moment.
I was always under the impression that there was a possibility of administration. Probably naively, even myself at that point thought that couldn't happen, or wouldn't happen to us. Wrongly, as it turned out. I've experienced a lot of those now, albeit now injuries and whatever, now losing people. But to think now for a minute now, the club you love and the club you've supported all your life now, you think now your tuning's paid from the doors getting shut in the club now, it's fairly traumatic. Certainly myself and the vast majority of us, probably didn't like my head away from the fact that it was a possibility, because part of us didn't believe it could happen.
And yet it did. Rangers were plunged into administration.
See, I'll never forget the date, 14th of February. It was a Tuesday, because we had a reserve game against Hibs away at their new training ground, and we were told to come in early.
Craig White's come in at the meeting with Gordon Smith and Ali Russell to the boys, saying it's a possibility it could happen, but it wouldn't be happening in the near future.
Sat down with us all in the dressing room at Murray Park and explained what was happening, guaranteed us a few things and said that the club would not be going into administration.
He definitely looked unsettled, and immediately after, prior to that meeting, because I think he'd found out that I think HMRC were attempting to put us into administration. So we, myself and Kenny, actually went through to Hibs training ground. Our boys had a game there, which I remember they did particularly well in.
After the game, went into The cafeteria had some soup and sandwiches. There was Sky Sports News, Yellow Bar, breaking news, Rangers have gone into administration.
That never after he left. So you can imagine what the boys were like. And basically that was the last we'd seen him.
But then I got the news, I got a phone call to say that the club had gone into administration, which was obviously a disastrous piece of news.
So we're hectic phoning teammates, anyone that knew anything that was going on. It was just a bizarre day, and one I'll never ever forget for the wrong reason, not the right reasons.
It was very, very, very unpleasant time. I can remember it very, very well.
Unfortunately, this morning HMRC decided that they wanted to appoint their own administrator immediately. We obviously were very disappointed by that course of action, and so we've had to accelerate our plans. We thought we'd have 10 working days before the appointment of administrators to get plans in place and perhaps give a bit of hope that we could still have some time to negotiate with HMRC. That unfortunately was not to be the case. HMRC wanted to move immediately, and so we had to bring our plans forward. It doesn't change anything fundamentally that I said yesterday. I said there was only a very small chance that we'd avoid administration. We're in administration now, and we're all working to get the club out of administration as quickly as possible, and for us to have a much stronger business at the other side of this process.
There was so much speculation in the weeks and a couple of months prior to that, people saying they were destined for administration. There was rumour, there was counter-rumour, but still that afternoon I remember taking the call in the office, and there was just still, it's an unbelievable aspect to it that it had actually happened.
I was one of those, and I think I was pilloried by Rangers fans for saying so, but I always thought it would end up in administration. There was always the darker fear that it would be liquidation. It turned out it was in the end, but I think administration was inevitable. I'm convinced that administration was actually part of the game plan anyway.
I think that might have been, obviously I can't speak for Craig, but that might have been Craig's idea of what was going to happen. The whole thing, snowballed into chaos effectively, and it took us a long time, obviously, to come out of the administration and inevitable the liquidation and the whole transformation of the football club.
I mean, at the time, again, I suppose there was a little bit of positivity around, what he was saying about how we would come back out of administration and that it was going to be a quick process, but it became pretty clear quite quickly that wasn't going to be the case.
So, there might have been in a few people's thoughts that it would be a quick turnaround, but it certainly was not the case, and it was indeed extremely worrying times for the players and staff.
From that day, on the 14th of February last year, within days, the extent of the financial meltdown was becoming apparent. Suddenly, from having Ali McCoist and Lee McCulloch and Stephen Naismith on back pages, David Whitehouse and Paul Clark from Duff and Phelps were dominating the back pages, and the stories, the whole agenda for the Scottish media was changing from man kicks ball to all these myriad of financial stories.
My name is Paul Clark, and I'm one of the joint administrators of Rangers Football Club, and on my right is David Whitehouse, who is the joint appointee with me. First of all, it's important to clarify how we reached this point. The club was facing financial challenges, and a number of discussions were held with HMRC over the last several months regarding a range of current and legacy liabilities. The directors of the club decided that in view of these liabilities, there was little option but to serve on Monday of this week a notice of intention to appoint administrators. The situation, however, was crystallised during Tuesday when HMRC applied to appoint administrators themselves. The ongoing tax tribunal and its potential outcome has caused a great deal of uncertainty at the club. What a period of administration will do, painful though it is to remove that uncertainty.
As the horror of administration began to hit home, Ali McCoist had to galvanise his players, even although the season was lost with the automatic implementation of a 10-point deduction.
I think you've had better weeks.
Definitely better weeks, but as crazy as it may seem, I'm as positive today as it's been in a long time. Our club, as I've said to you before, guys, has gone through a very traumatic time. We're going to march right through it, and with the help of everybody, the players, supporters, everybody worldwide, we will get through this. I don't have any doubts about it. Starting tomorrow, for example, I've just received information there that not a ticket in the house tomorrow for the Kilmarnock game. So that's what it's all about. That's what Rangers are all about tomorrow. Everybody rallying for each other, and you'll see what Rangers mean to so many people tomorrow.
Ali, at any point in the last couple of weeks have you thought about walking away from this?
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. This is my club, the same as it is thousands and thousands of Rangers supporters, and we don't do walking away.
The loyal fans listened to their manager, marching on Ibrox to offer their support to the club they love so passionately.
Goyan goes to ground cheaply, Heffernan works it back in, Shields! He's open to scoring. Well, Doran Goyan committed himself early. Hefferman's run took him in behind a rather flat Rangers back four. And when he squares it in there, Dean Shields sliding the ball home. Well, not the start Rangers were looking for.
Disappointingly, the result didn't go Rangers' way, but the supporters rallied behind their club. As the story reverberated around the world, it was greeted with utter disbelief.
I thought it was a joke. I just couldn't believe what I heard. I was really stunned, and I phoned some of the other 9 in a row guys, and they were, they just couldn't believe it either.
I remember being at home in Devon and watching news at 10 and seeing the fateful press releases, which really, did trigger some sadness. Not that I was a Rangers fan, of course, but to see, a club with a history of Rangers in administration, and to see, the anger and the passion of the fans was something that, moved any football fan really, whether you're a Rangers fan or not.
All eyes turned to football's governing bodies, as the plight of the club was there for all to see.
We've met with both the SFA and the SPL, and both have been supportive of the club, and we're in negotiation, particularly with the SPL at the moment, in relation to payments which are due to the club, and we're very hopeful that they'll be sympathetic in relation to the plight of the club at this time and assist with some flexibility in terms of the timing of receipts which the club's entitled to. Over many years the club's been obviously a key part of Scottish football and very supportive, and we hope that the influence and the support which the club has given to the game over the years will carry some weight at these difficult times.
The harsh reality was that this would not be forthcoming. The first casualties of the financial crisis were Chief Operating Officer Ali Russell and Director of Football Gordon Smith.
As a staff, we're extremely saddened and disappointed to see anybody lose their job and go. It's certainly in that case of indeed Ali and Gordon's, who have been nothing other than totally supportive of trying to do their best for this football club.
The true nature of Craig White's dealings became apparent when it was revealed he funded his takeover by mortgaging season tickets to Ticketus.
My reaction was shock, but not surprise. Well, shock because it's obviously not a good situation, but I would have to say not a surprise, because with the greatest respect, all you guys and indeed the boys and the journalists and the newspapers were heading in that direction. Like every other Rangers supporter and every other Rangers member of staff, we all have a lot of questions that we would love to hear answered, and hopefully in the fullness of time that will be the case.
This is sharp for Rangers, it's Salim Kirkar now.
A solid away win at Inverness gave the shell-shocked fans something to cheer about.
These are tough times for everyone connected with Rangers Football Club, but they've given themselves 90 minutes off from their troubles today. It remains to be seen what will happen in the coming week and whether some of these players won't be at Rangers by the end of it. But they've done what they had to do today and they've done it for the fans.
Back at Ibrox, the loyal support rallied, but the off-field distractions were taking its toll on the players as the administrators sought to make massive and necessary savings to keep the club going.
You know, the playing squad is at the heart of whatever any purchaser will be looking to acquire. So, you know, we're meeting people this evening, we've got a series of meetings of course tomorrow, and we'll have to be sort of concluding our strategy in that regard during the course of Friday. We met the players earlier today, so the players know the constraints in which we're working.
It wasn't nice. We were in the meeting room upstairs. And Duffin Phelps, Paul Clark and stuff was standing in front of us telling us this, and the hatred in the room for him was obviously there to see and feel. And we were asking them questions and we gave them a couple of solutions. They didn't want to hear it, they weren't interested. Then they're agreeing deals that players can go for lesser values. And why you would do that, I just don't know.
As they were explaining, they felt it was the only way to save the club. You know, it was a case of take pay cuts or 10, 12 players need to get sacked. You know, and we were all in it together, and you didn't know who was on that list of 10, 12, so it was very uncertain. And then obviously we were hoping at first to try and get the pay cut deferred, to try and get the money back, you know, in years to come, in stages, gradually. But it was a case of the more time it went on, it was not pay cuts, not getting this money back. Which was a tough time because, you know, a lot of the players, the younger players, were losing thousands, people losing tens of thousands, some of the high earners hundreds of thousands. You know, so it's not an easy decision. You know, the boys, at the end of the day, it's your job. You know, you love playing football. We all love playing for this club, and it was drastic measures, but it had to be done. You know, and looking back, you go down in history as being part of the reason it saved, you know, this great club of ours. So, you know, it was, it was a tough time. It was scary, but hopefully now we've seen the back of it, and as I say, there's brighter times ahead.
It was constantly just sitting around and waiting and having meetings and voting and things, and there were so many different options and things that were looked at. You know, we certainly didn't rush into a decision, and you know, we tried to look at other options and things that were available to us, but in the end really it came down to Friday, and it was really make or break on Friday. It was literally, you know, we go with this and we take the cuts, or you know, your friend beside you might be gone tomorrow or today. So I think it came down to that really, where the boys really didn't want to see anyone go. Yeah, it's certainly something I've never experienced before and definitely wouldn't like to experience again.
I'm pleased to announce today that a package of cost-cutting measures has been agreed with the Rangers playing staff that enables the club to move forward. The agreement on very substantial wage reductions and voluntary departures from the club represents a major sacrifice by the Rangers players. The discussions have been lengthy and no means easy for anyone involved, but the most important objective in all of this process has been to achieve an outcome that will help save the club.
As the pay cut deal was agreed, both Greg Wild and Mervan Celik left the club. In adversity, there was a galvanisation of Murray Park staff.
Positives, administrators come in, brought the team closer together, brought the club staff in here closer together. They told us there was going to need to be redundancies. So as a team we thought, let's try and keep the club together, let's sacrifice the money to keep everybody at Murray Park in a job, and obviously at Ibrox as well, because there was a lot of people worried at Ibrox as well that have been there all their life, and it's not really, well, no fair doesn't even come close. So we've stuck together. We got there in the end about agreeing the wage cuts, which is massive wage cuts, and I think that was a testament to the dressing room we had at the time, to show what good people it was to do that for the club that they loved.
It was anything but ideal because, you know, as a football manager and a coach, you hope to plan, prepare teams for winning league and cup matches, and that was completely and utterly thrown out the window. Of course, we had a job to do, and I have to say I thought the players did it really, really well in terms of, you know, claiming second place, which they had a fight in their hands for. That said, the day was taken up with meetings with administrators and players representatives and you know, and things like that. It was a very, very difficult time.
An impossibly difficult situation took its toll on the players at Tannadice. However, in the fight to save Rangers, it was now time for the fans to step up.
When we went into administration, the club was inundated with requests to try and help. But it wasn't as easy as that. The administrators are running the club, so technically we have to report into them. And what we did with Jim Hanna and myself, we got together and came up with an idea.
We've already had a phenomenal amount of interest with people donating £5,000, £20,000, tenors, you know. There's a wee woman came in last week, I think, and she had offered £20 out her pension and she'll be back in next week again. So, I mean, there's going to be some absolutely fantastic stories attached to it, but the most important thing is, is to raise money for the club.
With the launch of the Fighting Fund, a new positivity was felt around the club. The timing was perfect, as the Rangers family defiantly stood firm to stop Celtic winning the SPL title at Ibrox. The gloom of administration was lifted briefly as the Rangers fans revelled in that Old Firm win. And 5 days later, the loyal support sold out Ibrox for a game that few would forget.
People. I told people back home that we were going to play in front of almost a sellout crowd, and they were like, "What? It's impossible." And even the AC Milan guys told me after the game that if we had played in Milan, maybe you could have had 10, 15,000 people. It just shows what a club we're talking about.
And Bronkhorst is off. Would you believe it? Who else could possibly break the deadlock but Ali McCoist? ...355 Rangers goals in a glittering playing career. And there's another one added to the total. Great movement from him on the end of Van Bronckhorst's cross, in off the inside of the post. Rangers legends ahead.
Duff and Phelps confirmed there were 4 bidders in play to take ownership of Rangers. But that did little to allay the fears of fans who worried that liquidation was a distinct possibility. And at the St Mirren clash in April, they showed their concerns. the fans lifted the spirits of the players who dug deep to deliver on the pitch.
The man who finished the game in some style against Motherwell with seconds of the match remaining last week, he snatches the winner with seconds. It's on target yet again. Big effort for Andy Liddell. 2-0 Rangers. Well, Kiernan delivers. McCullum does enough. And when it breaks into the path of Andy Liddell, he drills it home. It's going to be Sonny Aluko. He gets it up. Stunning goal! Sonny Aluko breaks the deadlock. What a stunning goal! Aluko's 7th of the season. Wonderful technique. It's half nil. Rangers 1.
Well, I believe there's a real unity and a real resilience involved around our football club at the moment. From players, staff, fans. You saw the fans today. Again, I mean, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You know, and they got what they deserved today. They got a performance from the team and they get 3 points. And I really believe, you know, I'm proud of the boys at the moment and the support. And it's as difficult as a time as it is at the moment, and it is very, very difficult. You know, sometimes good things come out of it, and certainly the unity that we have with those players and the fans is wonderful at the moment.
But the governing bodies had the light blues in their sights. The Rangers' rise back to stability was about to get rocked by the SFA.